Uh, I'm near Frankfurt, Germany.
Okay. Cool. So what are you about? You're about 11:30 p.m. there? 11
Yeah,
after
it's
11
pretty.
p.m.
It's late. I'm a little tired, but hey, I'll stay up for this. It's all good.
I'm so happy you could join in, Miles. Like, long time no see, man.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, like the 80s. The
Yeah.
80s.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Really?
So yeah, I mean, me and Morgan we're neighbors basically. That's
I think you're
the
saying
connection.
in Wellesley? Is that where you guys live?
Exactly.
Wellesley?
Exactly. And about 3 houses down was Dave Cowens' house.
Okay. Yeah. I was over at Dave's once or twice when he was at Regis College. He was the AD out there, and we used to go.
Yeah.
Like Rick Carlisle and I, or somebody would go out there sometimes in the summer. And when Dave was doing his camp, he had they had a big basketball camp out there.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
We go out there with play with the counselors who were college counselors, and a couple times we went over to Dave's house afterwards. He had a big he had a weight room.
Right.
And, but we lived in Needham for the last couple of years that we were there, not far from I think was Babson. So
Really?
we lived right pretty close to that, and
Oh, nice.
we were over in Newton before that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you guys, back in the 80s, you guys practiced at Hellenic College, is that correct?
We did, yes. Yeah.
I mean, what was it like back in the day? I mean, just for like people that wanted to catch a Larry Bird or a Robert Parrish. I mean, was there like any security over there for you guys?
No, not really. Just the Greek Orthodox priest. They kept her. There was never really any issue with it. It's tucked away, and well, I don't know that there was ever any problem with anybody coming in there. It wasn't like that. You had a.
Yeah, I mean,
like these days, we go to these practice facilities and got to have a biometric scan or something to get
exactly.
in.
Exactly.
Well, the first time that I met you, I told you the story. My friend and I got lost at the Garden, and we wound up somehow in your parking lot, in the players' parking lot. And DJ took us aside. I mean, we were 10 years old, 11 years old, and brought us around and introduced us to everybody. And you were in your car, and Larry was sitting in the car with you. And DJ was like, let me introduce you to a couple friends of mine. And that's how I met you. And you were amazing. You were so sweet. And that's actually why I contacted you, was that story. It's always stuck in my mind. And, I always appreciated that. But no, the security was lacking at that point.
I don't remember that. You got a better memory than me, but yeah, we had it. Trying to think, they had a kind of like, it was almost like a big wooden ramp back there in the Garden.
Yeah,
drove up.
Yep, exactly.
And I forget what we do. I think maybe we would drive up there, and then maybe they'd drive our car back down or something. I forget, because I don't remember walking up that ramp so much. Anyway, yeah, I think anyway, whatever. Yeah, cool place, the old Garden and that whole area. Very different looking now. So much lighter and brighter now that they got rid of the
oh, totally.
overhead.
The
T and everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say.
What that bridge is called? That's all lit up with the lights that goes across to Charlestown or wherever.
Now, are you into boxing? I see your.
No, not really. Why?
I see your bag behind you.
Oh, that's set out there, and I don't think I haven't. My wife got it. I've rarely used it, and she doesn't use it much now. In fact, we're on this here. We're going to advertise it. So if anybody wants to buy it, I'll sign it. No, yeah, it's a
for Rony Seikaly.
A kickboxing thing, the red thing, and then an Everlast heavy bag and a punching bag now. I need to get out there, but most of my exercise these days is on the exercise bike and a little bit of little bit of resistance or medicine ball or kettlebells or something.
Nice. So Miles,
Yes,
what do you have to ask Greg here?
I got a lot of things to ask Greg. I don't know where we should start. Maybe just I had a few questions before you turned professional. You played at Brigham Young,
Yes.
and when I was doing my research, you played in the McDonald's All-American game in 1979, correct?
I was a McDonald's All-American for the game, though. I didn't get to play because Danny Ainge broke my hand.
Oh, okay. How nice of
Seriously, we
him.
were on a, I think it was the week before, I was going, I was from Houston, Texas, and back then we couldn't take our recruiting trips until after the high school season was over. This is like March, first April, whenever, and I went to BYU, and the next week I was going to Duke, and then I think the McDonald's game was right after that Duke visit because it was in Charlotte. Anyway, we
Okay.
were playing pickup ball at one of the PE gyms with Danny and like 3 or 4 other guys from the team for an hour. And he wasn't, not obviously not intentional, but I had my hands on a loose ball in the basket and I went up and Danny slapped at it and broke my knuckle and I had my hand in the cast for the McDonald's game.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah. And
But you watched the
but there
game.
were some other, yeah, so I watched it. There were some other games after that. There was a McDonald's game that was DC All-Stars, DC Virginia All-Stars. So like Ralph Sampson and Wittenberg and Lowe played for them and US. I did play in some others in the next, 3 or 4 weeks. Dapper Dan in Pittsburgh. But yeah, the McDonald's game was cool. That was a great honor, sure. And that McDonald's class was a pretty stout class with a few Hall of Famers.
Right. And for those guys I have listed here, Isaiah Thomas, Dominic Wilkins, James Worthy, and Byron Scott. I mean, when you remember seeing those guys, which of those 4 amazing players stood out the most to you? I mean, this was before they were pros.
All of them were good. Dominique, I think had been to a camp in the summer before my senior year in Georgia with Dominique, and Dominique could always jump through the rim, so he was pretty impressive dunker. But also I think we had I was probably the 4th rated center in that class. It was Ralph Sampson, Sam Bowie, and Steve Stepanovich.
That's a nice class.
All longtime pros, guys who had injury issues, all 3 of them. And then there's those guys who were great players, but something derailed them along the way. I think Quentin Daly was part of that. Quentin was, he got in some drug problems when he's in the NBA,
Right.
but he was a dynamite player. And anyway, great class, but certainly worthy, Byron Scott, Isaiah.
Yep.
I'll make something else.
And I mean, you went to school with Danny Ainge at BYU, and then you were teammates. I mean, there must be a lot of history with you, because I mean, are you guys lifelong friends? I mean, I couldn't imagine why not.
We didn't know each other until BYU. So Danny was the head coach at BYU when there was Frank Arnold, and Frank had been an assistant at the University of Oregon. Then he was an assistant with John Wooden at UCLA, and Gary Cunningham was the other assistant. So they were part of that 88 game winning streak. He helped to recruit Bill Walton and Marcus Johnson and David Greenwood and those guys. And anyway, BYU hired him, and that I think it was his first year or after his first year that he brought in Danny, because BYU had a good basketball tradition, but they're in the early mid 70s. They kind of had a down period for 5-6 years, kind of mediocre. And Danny came in, and then the year after so he was 2 years ahead of me. Then there was 3 other high school All-Americans, a guy named Devin Durant, who played a little bit in the NBA, Fred Roberts,
Yeah.
who played a long time in the NBA. We played together for almost 2 seasons in Boston. And then a third guy, Steve Trumbo, who was an NBA draft pick, but he played over in Real Madrid and Barcelona FC for about 12 years.
Okay.
And then I was the following year. So Danny and I were together 2 years at BYU. Then I was drafted. We were there. I was basically there 4.5 years at the Celtics. And then we ended up later, about 1.5 years later, 2 years later, with Sacramento Kings for a year as well. So.
Right. So Morgan, I mean, I got some more questions. You want to pop
Yeah,
in there?
I've actually got a very important question, which Greg, I think you're perfect to answer this. Now, you played in the 80s. and then you played in the early 90s. The shorts, which pair of shorts did you find more comfortable and more adept to your playing style? The 80s shorts or the longer shorts in the 90s?
I think in the 90s when I was still there, a lot of teams you still had a blend of both, because it was kind of, you'd have the at least I was with the Magic most of that time in the early 90s, and you remember the equipment manager, do you want a long hem or whatever they called it, or a short one? So I just say, back then we had better looking legs, so that's why we could wear short shorts. So
that's great.
I don't know. I think that kind of trend started with Chris Webber and Jalen Rose and the Fab Five.
Yeah.
I remember that. The Michigan guys kind of had baggy shorts, and and it was fashion, so it caught on. But yeah, in hindsight, a little bit longer shorts, maybe not the real baggy ones, but the little longer shorts that they wear pretty much now, probably look a little better.
That's great. One other question that I did have for you was, we talked about this earlier, but I think it's a great story. Can you talk about your fight with Seikaly? What happened that day?
Well, that was here. He's with the Miami Heat. I'm at the Orlando Magic, two expansion teams, second, third year or whatever in the league. And Commissioner Stern and Vince McMahon got together and said, hey, what can we do to spice up ratings? And so they said, yeah, let's get Seikaly and Kite to have a throwdown. So it was all staged. No, I'm just kidding. No. We got a little irritated with each other. Rony was a good scorer. He was a 17, 18 point a game scorer, got the ball in the post, was a very good player. And he, like a lot of guys, didn't always enjoy my defense and kind of leaning on him. And I don't know, I think there were kind of elbows exchanged. And for whatever reason, I went off and kind of tackled him there on the baseline. I was underneath him and kind of had him in a headlock, and then as is now, players who are on the bench can't leave the bench, but aren't supposed to leave the bench, but coaches can, to be peacemakers. However, those old school, I don't know if any of these guys do it now, but the old school coaches, they took that as an opportunity to get their licks in. And so Kevin Lockery is the coach of the Heat, and I'm on this pile, and I've been getting punched 5 or 6 times in the face, and it's Kevin Lockery. I get up and I'm mad at Kevin Lockery, and I'm about to chase him down. He got the best shots into that whole thing, and but that's kind of how it went. So, and the backstory, you want to talk about that backstory, Moe, in the next couple of weeks, and what happened after that?
I would love to hear that. That was hysterical. The
okay.
What was it? Scott Skiles said something to you?
Yeah. I'll tell you the whole story. It's got a minute or two here.
Please.
So we were playing the Heat like 2 weeks later, and Seikaly, I think I got suspended for 2 games. I think Seikaly for 1, which back in those days was, pretty severe, and still is a pretty severe punishment in the league. Anyway, so we're playing down in Miami, and Orlando had a pretty good rivalry going there with new expansion teams, and anyway, we go down there, and Bernie, who was the mascot for the Miami Heat, hung me in effigy. So besides winning 2 championships, this is probably the highlight of my career, at least one of the most fun. So it's like we're in warm-ups, and anytime I touch the ball, the Heat fans are booing. I get in the game, and anytime I get the ball, they announce my name, they're booing me. And then, like, I don't know, to break in the second quarter or something, Bernie's up in the concourse of the second level of the arena during a timeout, and he's got this dummy with Greg Kite Magic jersey and shorts on it, and a big noose around his neck, and about a 15-foot rope, and he's swinging it around his head in a big circle as they blast "Let's Go Fly a Kite" on the arena PA. And guys on the team, we're just cracking up on the bench, they're all, and the Heat fans are loving it. And so anyway, we go on after the game. I think we won, whatever. We're in the locker room, and the reporters are asking me, so what do you think, Greg, about getting booed every time there? And Scott Skiles, who was a great teammate, great point guard, next to me, he says, "Oh, that's nothing. Greg gets booed worse than that at home." But anyway, pretty funny. And even more ironic than that, about half dozen years ago, 25 years later, whatever, I'm at a event down in West Palm Beach, and guess who's there? The guy who was Bernie, who's mascot. I had no idea who he was, but he introduced himself to me. And he said, I used to tape he said, that was one of my most favorite performances. He said, I used to tape them all. He said, I can burn it on a DVD for you. I said, yeah, sure. So he dropped it in the mail. I got that somewhere. So
That's amazing. That's
Pretty
amazing.
fun.
I love that. Now, I'm not sure if you know this, but your offensive output in the 30 assist game for Scott Skiles was perfect. You shot 2 for 2. Nobody else didn't miss a shot that game.
I needed to take more shots. They were freezing me out, I guess. But I didn't get a lot of shots, but at least I made the 2 that he made. And
Right?
Scott set that record that still stands, but it was kind of the perfect storm too, if you will. That was the year. That was one of the 2 years that the Denver Nuggets, that Paul Westhead was coaching the Nuggets, and so Westhead ran. It was after his Loyola Marymount days. We had that offense with Hank Gathers and
Bo Kimball.
Moe Kimball, and so they're trying that in NBA. So the Nuggets before, with Doug Moe and others, had played a fast pace, but they were really trying to go fast. And so it was a high scoring game. I think it was in the 130-ish, 140 range. So a lot of opportunities to shoot. And we did have some guys in the Magic, who could score a little bit then that year. So it was a great game by Scott.
Do you think it'll ever be beaten, that record?
It's been a long time. So
It's been a long time. 30,
yeah, I mean,
30 years?
Yeah, and I think the assist record was Kevin Porter before that, like 28 or 29.
Yeah.
From the Bullets from years ago. So yeah, that's like early 90s. So you're getting on 30 years now.
Wow.
So that's a tough one. But it is one that could be beat. It's not like, maybe not like Wilt's 100-point game.
No,
But, I don't know. It's rare to see somebody get 20 assists in a game.
Yeah.
Much less 30. So it's pushing it.
Miles, go ahead, my man.
So somehow during this nice interview, I was able to dig something out, and this is some nice nostalgia for you guys, at least for Greg. I don't know how good you can see it, but I'm just going to flash it here. Take a look at that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. That's the ramp to the garden, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's just, I was hanging out there. But this was actually, I was waiting for the Boston Bruins, but that's the ramp where the cars went up. So I figured the Celtics, you guys also drove up there, right?
I'm thinking we did, from what I remember, if not always, at least in bad weather.
Okay.
And it seemed like there was somebody who would drive our car down. So we'd get out.
Yeah,
Okay.
from what I remember, it was the lot was outside where you guys came down.
Well, but then they probably drove our car down to park it. And so maybe we walked down the ramp to go get our cars.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
God, I still don't know how the heck I wound up in that parking lot that day.
Well, it was just in the back, but there was general parking back there. And I don't know that it was really divided from the other fan or public parking. I think they just
what a
had
difference.
section where we could park.
Today and 30 years ago, what a difference.
Oh, yeah. They talk about security. This reminds me, we were playing in the Bullets one day in the old Capitol Center, I think it was, in Landover. And they had a small locker room. A lot of visiting places have a small locker room. And it's, the game's at 7:30 and it's like 6:45. Most of the guys are in there. Some guys have been out shooting a little bit before a pregame meeting. And somehow there were a couple of fans who walked by there. Somebody stuck their head in and like Larry or Kevin said, "Hey, come on in, guys."
I heard that. I think I've heard that story somewhere.
Messing around. They were in the locker room, had some popcorn, and
they
grabbed a beer for him out of the cooler, that post-game beer and soda cooler.
So Greg, I have a question for you. Please clear this up. I mean, when I was a kid in the 80s, I was big on getting autographs, and I got lots of, all the baseball, hockey, basketball. I went to the hotels, Boston, I found everything out, but I never ever was able to get really Celtics autographs. So please tell me, how were you guys on the road? I mean, did a Larry Bird, did he sign in the hotels? Did a Robert Parrish, did a Mchale? That would really interest me how they were. I mean, you were all over the States. You saw this when you had to go to the bus.
Good question.
Yeah, you had the Celtic Nation everywhere. I mean, they kind of like maybe the Lakers a little bit with the Knicks. Certainly when Michael Jordan was playing in
Yeah,
the Bulls, but we'd go anywhere around the country and there'd be a lot of Celtics fans, and then you had the, even if there weren't Celtics fans, autograph collectors in. So that was really an individual thing. I mean, kind of varied with the guy, the person, whether they couldn't sign a lot. I can remember DJ doing a lot, but also what happens too in those situations, like where you're leaving a court before the game, or even getting into a hotel or something, there may just be more people than you can do, and you got to go.
right.
So there were definitely some guys, and I don't remember, maybe Paris a little less reluctant to sign. I know one thing that Larry would do, and this is, I really appreciate this and understand this, is that Larry was always great to kids, or maybe somebody with their kids, but he also, of course, because, him walking through an airport, or you see him in a restaurant or
Yeah.
a hotel, it's kind of like, I think Dan Shaughnessy said in Indiana is like Elvis, walking through, somewhere. But so if people, like if you're sitting down at a restaurant or something, and people were polite, like while he's eating, no, he'd ask him, but he really respected it. He'd sign autographs for kids, things like that.
Right.
So
Greg, the 85 finals between 84 and 86. I thought 85 was one that really got away from you guys.
yeah, I mean, I think we had a chance every year in 85 and 87 to win. The Lakers were a great team. I'm trying to think about the circumstances of 85. But we were really, on the other hand, we were probably really fortunate to win the 84 series. I mean, they were up 2-0 and a little change of fortune. Kevin Mchale, where Rambis ran into Kevin Mchale's elbow.
Oh yeah.
And or whatever. They could have easily swept us in that series. Some great epic battles back and forth. 87, we had some playoff injuries. Kevin, I know Bill Walton was out most of the year with 87, and Robert Parrish was limping around with some ankle issues. Kevin had a stress fracture. I think had to have a screw put in his foot right after the season. So, what classic series? We didn't play the Lakers in 86. Got to play a great team with the Houston Rockets, but
Right.
What a team that was.
Yeah, absolutely. 86 was phenomenal. I mean, they're all great teams, but 86, has been noted as one of the best of all time. And I don't know if you guys have seen this book, Dan Shaughnessy wrote it. They started plugging his book.
Oh, great.
Is that new? I don't think I've seen that. I've read a lot of his other
it just
books.
came out a couple of, I think he interviewed me last year, and a lot of the guys who were available
Right.
just came out. But it even goes back a little bit about the start of Larry's era with 80, 81, that first championship, but a lot on those. I was fortunate, I was there 4.5 years, so all 4 full years that I was there, we went to NBA Finals, which I didn't even realize it. That had only been done by the Celtics, previous Celtics teams. That Celtics team then, when LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh were in Miami, they were the next team to do it. And then the Warriors did it 5 years in a row. So, but when you look at it too, when you get to the finals, between exhibition games, playing 20 games or so in the playoffs, you're playing about 100, 115, 120 games, and a lot of wear and tear. I think even with the Warriors who were younger, you saw that towards the fifth year. Some of the key guys like Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green had injuries. So, our bunch, our key guys were already in their 30s during those 4 years.
Yeah. Now, one thing I would actually, from that book, talking about life with Larry Bird. Can you tell me what was it? Every single time I look at there's a steal by Bird, or I
Johnny
see
Most.
Johnny
Yeah.
Most. If I see any of the big moments from that time, you're right there in every camera shot. Can you tell me any stories or something that you remember from Larry?
Oh, just as far as him on the floor and playing, what great confidence. Okay, you hear about trash. We probably all seen. It's easy to Google and YouTube. Hear about Larry's trash talking, and he was one of the best. But he was also, as Kevin said it, he was stealing other guys' brainwaves. Okay, this was, I think part of it was a little bit with Larry. In fact, I happened to hear on NBA radio today, just driving around. There was an interview that Bill Walton did with Larry about 15 years ago when he was the Pacers and as a GM. And Larry said, "Oh, I don't remember most of that." I think part of it with what Larry, with his confidence and what he said, that was part of his way to get into the game. But Larry was phenomenal. He'd go to the city and he'd say, you're kind of sometimes in a blur, especially on a multi-game trip. What city is this? He said, what town is this? And we get to the arena and say, what's the scoring record here?
I've heard that before. Yeah,
I've heard that. Yeah,
I'm gonna go average 40 on this West Coast trip or something, and he'd go out and do it, and then like kind of this trash talking. It wasn't for him, for his ego, but getting in the guy's head. A guy might check in the game and come to guard Larry. Larry'd go to the guy and said, "Man, your coach must not like you." And he'd say, "What do you mean? He put you in to guard me? Come on." Or he'd shoot the ball, and as he's releasing it, if the guy was a bigger guy, he'd say, "Too big," or "Too slow," or the guy was a small guy, "Too little," "Too late," And so he was he was great. One of the cool fun stories is we're playing the Knicks in Madison Square Garden, and Mike Saunders, who's a longtime trainer for the Knicks, before the game, early in the game, pre-game, or whatever, maybe Larry was shooting or just saw each other, and they're having fun with each other. And Mike Saunders challenges Larry, says, he said, "I'll bet you $5 that you won't bank in a 3-point shot during the game." And so of course Larry says, "You're on." And so we get in the game, and it's like, a minute or under a minute left, and we're down like 1. And there's a dead ball, maybe a free throw happening, and Saunders catches Larry's eyes and says, "Hey, Larry, like, you owe me 5." And Larry just kind of winks at him, and then sure enough, next trip down, mind you, like down 1 or 2 points, Larry shoots a 3 and banks it in and smiles at Mike. I know he's on 5. Yeah, Shaughnessy had a great story like that too. I can't remember verbatim, but it was kind of thinking about a streak. I think it was a free throw streak or something Larry had, and Shaughnessy didn't want to jinx him or whatever, and reminded anyway. Shaughnessy Larry during the game said, "Yeah, here, I didn't miss," or whatever, to Shaughnessy over on the sideline. But obviously, great skills. Great shooter, great passer, very, very excellent rebounder. But you just put that all together with the mental toughness and the attitude, diving on the floor and hustle and just what it takes to be a winner.
Now, Cedric Maxwell, of course, I mean, we both know, great trash talk. But if you think, if I think, from watching Kevin Mchale, Robert Parrish, Danny Ainge, the top 4, you had Bird, but the other 3 were kind of quiet. They didn't talk a lot of trash. But you told me a story about Kevin and Moses Malone. Do you mind telling that?
Yes. Yeah. So no, Kevin did talk. Kevin is, when we were playing or watching a film or something, he never got a 24-second shot clock violation as far as talking. Kevin was always talking. Kevin's a very gregarious, outgoing guy. I love him. Wonderful guy, but he was always talking. In the game, he'd talk, and he talked some trash too. But he'd have fun. He had a great sense of humor. And so we're playing Philly, And Moses, who didn't enunciate well, but a great guy, one of my favorite players. I grew up in Houston, got to play against him and pick up games even in high school and college when I go home. And obviously a Hall of Fame player. We're playing Philly, but Moses, even as a rookie back in the ABA, had the nickname Mumbles. So I mix that with his, Southern dialect and not enunciating really, really well. And Moses was famous. So playing Philly, and it's a tough game, a good game near the end of the game, towards the end of the game, and Moses goes, Mchale, Mchale. And Kevin says, what did you say? And Moses takes out his mouthpiece and goes, Mchale. And Kevin says, he said, for all I know, he may have been saying good game, but I just said, thank you. So funny.
That's a great one.
Yeah,
Miles, why don't you take over for a little bit?
Yeah, back to Larry. He's played a half with his left hand. You were on that team. You were in that game, right?
Yes.
I mean, we heard the whole world heard about it like after it happened, like years later. I mean, did you know about it or did he not? I mean, did you guys notice like after a while? I mean, when you watch the highlights,
he said
he's
something.
shooting
I
left.
think so this is a West Coast trip, and it was towards the end of the trip. We might have had a game or
It was
two after
Portland
anyway.
against Portland.
Yeah, it was Portland. So we were playing in Seattle the day before and going down to Portland. He said that on the bus or in shoot around or whatever, talking to, I'm gonna shoot everything left-handed. And
for 3 quarters.
Not quite everything left-handed. Now he wasn't out there shooting 18-foot jump shots left-handed, but he was going to the hole around the basket if he would use his left little running left-handed hook, which I mean he was very good at anyway, but he was like intentionally, doing it more. And so how many were field goals he had? I don't know. He scored a lot of points. He was in the 30s, I think.
I think he had 40 or 37.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
So I think 80% of his field goals that night were left-handed.
Well, you guys were pissed because the only team that beat you at home was Portland that year. So that was
was that the same year? Yeah.
Yeah, that was 86.
I think that was after, because I think the Portland loss was early in December.
Yep.
And so we ended up 40-1 at home, and then we didn't lose a playoff game at home either. And that West Coast trip was usually right after the All-Star break, because the Elephants were going up the ramp at the Garden, and that was when the circus came to the Garden every year.
Oh,
dude, I remember that. I actually worked as an intern for the Bruins when I was in high school. And my boss, I was working for the DJ, and my boss one day took me down the elevator at the Fleet Center and opened up, the doors opened up and there were the elephants, the hippos. Freaked me out, man. I had no idea that was happening.
Well, you have to Google it. After the old Boston Garden was torn down, somebody sent me, or I saw it somewhere, a post from like Instagram of supposedly a skeleton of a monkey that they found up in the garden rafters.
No.
They tore it down. Yeah, so like it got loose from the circus and lived up there for years and passed away.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Wow. Imagine somebody being, maybe mind altered at that point and seeing a little monkey run around and be like, dude, I saw a monkey at the Boston Garden.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. No, you got to stop doing that stuff.
Yeah. But those circuses, you go to Madison Square Garden, you can smell after they had that, you can still smell the animal smell. And
I remember.
I remember there were a couple of players for the Celtics, like maybe like Dan Roundfield or some guys actually had like allergic reactions, playing who were sensitive to
gee whiz, yeah.
Animals, yeah.
Now, I want to ask you one other question about today. You started a school, you and your wife?
Yeah, it was Jenny, my wife, is from Orlando. She played on the women's basketball team at BYU. That's how we met, and we were married by the time I was out of school. And Celtics, we lived down here in Orlando the off season, and then I played towards the end of my career 4 years with the Magic. And so her kind of dream and vision, it was her inspiration, her dream back. She and a friend who were a teacher in the mid-90s, a couple years before we were playing, we're thinking about the idea of starting a private school. And I thought two things. I thought it sounds like a lot of work, and the other thing was that this will blow over. I was I was right on the first, a lot of work, and no, it didn't blow over. So in 1996, we founded what's called Pathways Private School, and still operates today. We have a nonprofit, the Gifted Learning Foundation, that runs it. And it's a little over 200 kids, and we go grades from kindergarten all the way through high school. We had high school grades about 5-6 years ago, and I helped them get the high school sports started. And so I've helped there since we've had high school sports. I helped before when my kids were there with middle school sports, but I've helped coach the high school boys. In fact, we had a workout this morning.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Miles, go ahead. I know you've got some more questions.
One, Larry Bird, his incredible shots. I mean, he hits so many, or his passes. I mean, you can go on and on. There was that one game against, I think it was against Atlanta Hawks. It didn't count because I guess there's some rule. He was kind of behind the basket and he shot it over. You remember that?
Oh, the backboard?
Yeah, I was right there. It was in Hartford, where we used to play like
Oh, it was
3 home
Hartford.
games a
Sorry.
year.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and his momentum was taking him out of bounds, so he just, tossed it up and went over the backboard. So, yeah, so if a ball goes over from the back of the backboard to the front,
You
or
can't
maybe
do that?
if it passes, that's out of bounds.
Okay.
It's out of bounds.
Okay.
The ball can hit the top of the backboard, but if it hits the wires or the supports, it's out of bounds too. So
Do you
that was
think
out of bounds, but it went in. It counted. Nice shot for Horse.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Michael Jordan, 84 rookie. You played against him. He was playing for losing teams. I mean, obviously one could sense the amazing, abilities he had as a player early on. But if someone had told you, like, after 3-4 years that this guy would win 6 titles in a row in the 90s with the Bulls, what would have you thought? I mean, was there any thinking that this guy could be a champion and, win so many titles back in his first few years where you actually got to see him play?
Well, I think when he first came in the league, and even as he was in college, I remember some of our North Carolina guys like ML Carr and Cedric Maxwell, just going, "Hey, this guy's out of sight." And the old line was, who was the only guy who could hold Jordan under 20 a game was Dean Smith. Scored like 19.8 at North Carolina. He had some good guys with him too,
Right.
Worthy Perkins. So I think everybody knew. I mean, even when he came to the league, I mean, this guy was going to be a superstar and a perennial all-star and a Hall of Famer. Now, did he get better? Yeah, sure, but as much as anything, he got better people around him, and so that's what happened with the Bulls. And you look at it for the most part throughout NBA history. Now, occasionally with some really veteran free agent signings, most teams that are up there and contend for the title, like Jordan's 6 and 8 years, they climb the ladder. Okay, so they get individual experience and collective experience. So that's what Jordan and his teammates needed. You remember the old Jordan rules that they talked about. They couldn't get through us and Detroit and even Cleveland a little bit, and then they broke through. As the Lakers and Celtics kind of aged, Philly was changing. They broke through Detroit, who'd won it in those 2 years after the Lakers Celtics era of the 80's. And so the fact that he won champion, did we think about that in advance? No, maybe not a lot, maybe not all, but the fact that he became a champion with the right people around him is not surprising at all. And that you become a pretty good coach, and you become a pretty good general manager when you start with that kind of talent. It's almost can be hard to screw it up, but they certainly, Phil Jackson and Jerry Krause and Tex Winter and those guys, they knew what they were doing with getting Pippen around them and the other parts that who coached for a while, and Rodman and the other complementary pieces that made the Bulls champions.
Luke Longley.
Bill Wennington, Bill Cartwright,
Bill
Perdue,
Cartwright.
all very important.
He was a good player. He was a good player.
Yeah, Bill was, a top high school player, top college player, good scorer.
Played at San Francisco, right? Am I
He
right?
did, yes.
Yeah. Now, I was gonna go ahead, Miles.
Do you want to see some more nostalgia or not?
Okay.
I just
Oh,
picked
sure.
this up. I just found this. Not coming through. Right there. See
There
that
we
guy?
go. Who's that? Oh my
Looks like
gosh.
somebody getting off a bus.
That's at the garden at the where the players came out at the bank.
Oh,
It's Bill
so
Cartwright.
that's a
Oh, wow.
player.
That's Bill Cartwright.
Was that Bill Cartwright?
Yeah. And
Okay,
that little guy is me.
I see. Oh, cool.
Dude, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, I have
Maybe
like
when he was with the Knicks, he was with the Knicks before Chicago. I think
right. That was actually 84 playoffs, that incredible playoffs against the Knicks where you guys won in 7 games.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a great series. The first round against the Knicks and Bernard King and Cartwright
Yeah.
was still there, and they had
Exactly. They gave you a good run.
Bernard
Hubie
King, oh
Brown
my
was a
God.
coach. What a great coach. What a great basketball mind.
Yep,
Yeah, it was a 7-game series.
exactly.
Now,
Great.
Greg, what I was going to ask you was, you were actually on Orlando's team when they drafted Shaq.
I was.
It's kind of funny that Miles asked the question about Jordan. Did you see that with Shaq immediately, or was he a little raw at the beginning?
Well, first of all, it was Shaq, and I'd been there 2 years before. 1 year I'd started all 82 games, and next year I started maybe 40 or 50, and they gave Shaq my starting job, and I've never got an explanation why. So anyway, no. Yeah, he came
Smart
in, and
ass.
here's this guy that's got a body by Fisher. Matt Dukas was our coach then in Shaq's first year and the years before that. And Matt had played in Philadelphia with the Warriors with Wilt Chamberlain. I think Matt was first, second year player, and Wilt was like in his late 20s. And Matt said to us, this is even before we drafted him, when they were looking at him, LSU said, he said, the only guy I can compare him to physically that Matt had seen in all his years was Wilt Chamberlain. And a little bit different, slightly different build, but still 7'1", long arms, big hands, and this is getting a little technical, but the real component that really makes someone very athletic in most sports is called power. It's force times distance over time, if you want to get physics about it, but how fast and how quickly can you move something, with how much force. So, like Charles Barkley's 6'5" and very powerful, very quick and very strong. Shaq was that in a body, you just didn't see guys who could move like that. And so, and even as a rookie in shape, he's 320 pounds or something. I'm like 270 and, great shape and just incredibly strong, and it could run, played hard. And, one of the most telling stats, there wasn't an official stat back then, but I think it was Dave Zinkoff one of the PR guys with the Sixers kept a stat of like how many times everybody in the league dunked. And now they keep a stat on everything, how far you run and how many dribbles you take before you shoot, all the cameras that they have. But the league leader in dunks per game was usually about between 1.5 and maybe 2 dunks a game. I think the year before Shaq came in, it was Larry Nance, like at 1.8 or 1.9.
Good player.
Shaq during his first 5 years, he probably did this longer than that. He was dunking about almost 4.5, 5 times a game. So you look at it, more than double what you guys would usually do. And not only dunking, but that didn't count just the ones where he got to the rim and dropped it in or whatever. So his ability to one, go around guys, go over guys, or go to the basket with guys hanging on him was just phenomenal. And a great competitor, smart guy, got better and better at other things as he went along. And got to that finals with Penny Hardaway, Lakers lured them away, team with Kobe, and got the championships there, and got another one in Miami.
Now, did you ever witness a backboard being broken in a game?
Yes.
We talked about Moses and Shaq. I mean, who did it?
Daryl Dawkins.
Daryl Dawkins.
Yeah, Daryl Dawkins broke back. I never saw the Daryl's ones in
Thunder.
person, but Shaq broke at least one, maybe two in practice. I think it was missed one of them for something. Anyway, but but also he brought the whole goal down in New Jersey and then later in Phoenix. I mean, the whole, those NBA stanchions where they got the whole thing kind of collapsed. And you've seen the clip of the one in New Jersey.
Yeah.
The whole thing, the whole backboard apparatus and shot clock hit him on top of the head,
So what was your favorite moment in time on the bench? Just, visually, what was your favorite moment of your career?
The favorite moment of my career on the bench anywhere?
Yeah. Just one moment in time.
Well, I already told you the Miami Heat Bernie story, and I was playing most of that game, but I'm trying to think. I just have to say, those championship runs with the Celtics, being in that circumstances where so much of the nation and the world was focused on it. Not that you know that while you're playing, but just the tradition, the hero's journey. You look at literature. You always got to have a hero and a villain, and the Lakers were great villains. So, or from our Lakers fans' perspective, we were great villains. And what makes sports so great is rivalries. Red Sox, Yankees. You name it, in other sports, but the Celtics, Lakers, and even the year with it was just a tremendous year. What a privilege to be a part of it. It was a time when the NBA was coming out of some of the doldrums of the 70s and before, and you had aging Dr. J and Kareem, but you had Larry and Magic, and then behind them, Michael Jordan, and just what a launching pad for the NBA. So just to be a part of that whole era, be on the bench in those times was phenomenal.
That's awesome. Miles, why don't you end the show with a couple questions, and then we'll let Greg go.
Most of them have been answered, Greg. One more question about the 87 finals. There's a game that you probably remember where Robert was in foul trouble. Walton was ailing, and you played a lot against the Lakers, against Kareem. You had a really good game, and you had like 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block. Didn't score any points, but I mean, you really made it difficult for Kareem. And after the game, Pat Riley said, it felt like you scored like 100 points.
Yeah, I probably should have had 5 or 6 at least. I probably missed a couple of tip-ins. I should have grabbed them and dunked them. But that was me back then. But yeah, it was great. That was a lot of fun to play. Unfortunately, we lost the game, and then we lost the series. No, we won that game. I'm sorry. Yeah. We won that game, and it kind of at least kept us alive for another game, because then we went on to lose the next game where there was a missed free throw rebound that Michael Thompson got, and then that Magic Johnson baby hook.
Yeah.
I remember that.
That hurt.
Yeah.
That was the next game, and we went down. I think we went down 3-2 then, and we're going back to LA. And so, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. And so, that culmination of events, that year versus 86, Bill had been out a lot with his with a foot ankle injury, which plagued him throughout his career, many surgeries. And I had always been, even from my rookie year, but got more and more as that was my 4th year. They recognized that one of the things that I did well, among the few things I did well, was I was strong. I had good defensive positioning. So if I was playing a guy like Kareem, they wouldn't double team with me in there. And even throughout my career, a lot of times when I'm playing post, coaches wouldn't double team. They just rely upon me to kind of keep that guy, a little further out and off balance. And that's a big plus when you're playing. You may not think about it much, but if you're double teaming down to a good post guy, that really opens up opportunities. And Kareem was such a great passer
Yeah.
too. You know, they'd have somebody cutting to the basket or somebody spotting up for a jumper that he would hit. And so it was fun. It was great to be in that. And, you know, I had other shorter stints in some of the finals games where I played, you know, 5, 10 minutes, 12 minutes maybe. But that was fun to kind of be the, I think they called it Greg Kite Day or something in Boston the next day. It was fun. It was fun.
Greg, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you follow the NBA pretty well nowadays, or?
I do, yeah, I do, especially the playoffs. I mean, I'm it's fun. We're gonna have a couple of game sevens tomorrow, including the Celtics in the game seven.
Right.
So let's have and see what
Oh,
happens.
The reason I ask, I just there are quite a number of Germans in the NBA. I mean, do you keep up with that? I mean, the European players. I mean, if I mention like an Isaiah Hartenstein, who's a big man, he plays for the Clippers. A player that I followed, when he was a youth player, and now he's it's been difficult. It's been slow for him to move his way up, but I think he got a good chance with the Clippers. What's your take on the German players? I mean, what can you say about what you see?
Well, certainly we've had a couple of the all-timers. Detlef Schrempf was probably the first
Oh God.
great all-star player, and then of course Dirk Nowitzki. And but the German players like Isaiah Hartenstein, and I'm not sure who exactly the others are off the top of my head right now, but I think it's all part of this worldwide movement of basketball. I mean, there have been pockets of great basketball, very good basketball in Europe, even before the 80s. But I think that what David Stern and the NBA did with taking the game around the world, and then you had the Dream Team in '92. You had to change the amateur rules where, back in the 80s and things like that, we maybe had 10 guys in the NBA who were international players. Now they've got over 100 each year, and the NBA has gone around the world and doing these developmental academies in Latin America, Africa. We got the NBA Africa League now. So the parallel a little bit for me is I grew up in Houston, and Texas, big football state, but basketball is popular. But one of the things that happened in Houston, I mean, I got to watch Elvin Hayes with my dad and my older brother when I was 6, 7, 8 years old at the University of Houston. And then the Rockets came to town. So we kind of had several other guys my age, Clyde Drexler being one of them, who grew up there. And I think we're all impacted by that as kids growing up in Houston. And we had this great basketball there in the late 60s and in the 70s. The Rockets had some good teams with Moses Malone. So I think that's what's happened around the world. Mm-hmm. And you've gotten better and better coaching. And with the NBA being exposed, worldwide to kids in Germany and other places, it's helped to raise the level of the game around the world. And it's great. It's obviously been good for business, and it's really been a blessing, I think, for the NBA. A lot of fans here maybe don't know those names as well, and we don't know the names of college players coming out as well anymore because they don't stay as long as they used to. But the style of play that the Europeans have had of moving the ball and
the Euro step,
floor, shooting Euro step, Mike D'Antoni coming back and bring that with the Suns. It's gone a little bit overboard, a little bit with the 3-point and all the analytics, but it's another discussion. But I think the international basketball and European ball has been a great blessing for the NBA.
You know what it's done for me? It's really it shined a light on scouting. European scouting now. You've got to scout the European players.
Yeah, clubs have, they
10 years
do it
ago
around the world.
Go ahead.
They do it around the world, but of course in Europe you've got the top 25 or 30 teams that play in the Euro League, the Super League, kind of the NBA equivalent. And you've got the Spanish, I think it's the ABC League, which is probably the best league outside the NBA as far as a league. And so it's certainly a hub, and certainly where places guys go who are young there, like a Luka Doncic or a Nikola Jokic, and then they're over here and they're all-stars, or you've got guys who are NBA fringe players are going over there, coming back here. So it's you got to scout, you got to see all that, and they're certainly doing that. They're certainly well aware of it. I think one thing I wish that, and we may see this come in the US, but our basketball system is a little, I like to, from what I know about it, the international basketball system for youth better, the club system, because they practice, play. Here we get the kids and we play, practice. Not that we didn't play as much, but we have all this travel ball, AAU,
Sure.
shoe companies kind of led it, and then it's taken off where you got these cottage industries, and we got not that we don't have great players, great athletes, but we got kids who are not always learning the fundamentals of the game. And part of it, you know, we got great skills, 3-pointers, and I'm not gonna say we don't have the great athletes, but it's as far as playing the game, I think it comes a little bit better in general out of that club system for many of the rank and file good players.
It's a good point.
Sense.
I never thought about that. No, it makes sense. Absolutely. Well, I think we've been on for about an hour. Miles, do you have anything you want to ask before we sign off?
I think I'm pretty much, everything was answered, and I had a lot of fun with you guys.
Right?
Yeah.
Not bad for my
Thanks.
second show. You know, Miles, you've done thousands of these, and I really appreciate you coming on. And
Thanks for the invitation.
oh, absolutely. And, you know, I hope to do it again in the future if I can get more gentlemen like Greg to come on. Mr. Kite, I really thank you so much. Your time, your insight, it's been amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Best of luck with your podcast, and I enjoyed it. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care.